Guys, I am back in Salt Lake City. I am back out here in the garage. I've been doing a lot of stuff today and I've got more on the agenda, but boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to bring you up to speed on. So strap in, give me 1 second, and I'm going to catch you up and tell you what's going on and give you a kind of roadmap of the next little bit of time in front of us here. Okay, well, here I am out in the garage, and unfortunately, right at this point in time, I am not working on the Jeep. I'm putting a coat of wax on the BMW. I did the same to the Tacoma today. Let's back up, because if I don't tell this story in the proper order, it's going to get confusing. So here's the deal. Last time I was up in Seattle, I peeled out of there a little bit early in the midweek, and I went over to Montana to see my folks. I think I mentioned that they live in Montana and they're getting up there in the years. So I try to get over there and see them whenever I can, and not often enough, obviously, but I decided to go make a trip over there. So me and the dog went to Montana, and we had an incident with the dog. She pooped in the back of the truck. It's true, the back seat of the truck. Let me explain. So I have a cover, you know, that you put in there that hooks on the headrest and covers the whole back seat. And dogs do not go in grandma's house up in Montana. So I didn't have any place to keep her at night. So what I did the first night is I just had her sleep in the back seat of the truck, and that went fine. But my mother has these water jugs all over the place she's got one by the house that had about a ½ inch of growth in the bottom of it all around the thing. And she's got another one buried in the ground out there that the deer and so forth drink out of. And so the dog was drinking out of those. And I think she got like giardia or something. So the second night, I didn't have any place to put her again. So I wasn't sure, first time being left outside of a house without a fence, I didn't know what was, if I'd wake up in the morning, she'd be gone. So I stuck her in the truck again, came out in the morning, and we had a disaster. So I pulled the back seats out of the truck and threw them out in the grass and turned the hose on them, and we cleaned all that up and best I could, and whatever, dealt with that. The next night, I was like, all right, well, I'll just leave her outside. So she's outside the door and she's whining and she's all upset, and it's getting dark, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go sleep in the tent with her. So I went out and popped the rooftop tent up, throw her up in there with me, and she goes right to sleep, and then she wakes up about a half hour later and yaks on the floor of the tent. So she was not a healthy dog there for a couple of days, and everything got ruined, just got destroyed. So the truck has been, again, stripped down to nothing. I've shampooed the carpets, I've shampooed the seats. I have my carpet shampooer out here in the garage. I have the shop back. I have the cushion out of the rooftop tent here sitting on the Jeep right now, because I can unzip the whole thing. I'm gonna go throw that in the laundry. So the truck has been getting really worked over in terms of cleanliness. And while I was at it today, I went to the car wash and washed the whole thing, and then threw a coat of wax on it. It's been a while since it's been waxed. I detailed the interior a little bit, cleaned it all up. So then the BMW started sniffing the tears because it wasn't getting any love. So I'm out here in the garage right now, and you probably can't see it, but there's swirl marks on the hood. I've got a coat of wax down here. This hood's got some issues. I don't know if the camera will pick these up, but there's all these little dots on the hood, and it looks to me like what happened is when this hood was being prepped for paint initially, maybe somebody sneezed on it or something, sprayed. It looks like droplets got on the primer or on the steel before the paint got laid down. And the reason we feel like it's underneath is because there was a few little dots to begin with. Tried clay bar in them. I thought maybe they're surface imperfections. They got worse. Samantha worked for a time at a car wash that had a detail bay. She took the car in there one day and tried to buff them out. They got worse. So I think as the paint gets a little bit thinner, we see more of those. So someday there might be a whole paint job in the BMW's future, but for right now, it's just I'm gonna finish up slapping a little coat of paint on that thing. That is not all that's gone on. Remember that sailboat? My little Santana 22 out here? Well, here's the deal. When I'm sitting up there in Seattle on the trawler, every Wednesday night, every Friday night, every day, people are out there sailing right outside the breakwater from me. And I'm starting to think that it might not be a bad idea. I mean, the boat's paid for, the trailer's paid for. That doesn't cost me a dime right now. In fact, I haven't registered it forever. So there's zero expense in that boat. I'm thinking about dragging it up to Seattle, and there's a place there at the marina where you can dry store stuff up on your trailer, and then you just roll your trailer out on the pier, and there's a crane there, and you just drop it in the water and go sailing. Or I might even look into a slip for it. It would probably be fairly inexpensive because it's small. That's a 22-foot boat. It's small and doesn't need power, so it's basically just needs a place to tie up. So I am seriously thinking about that. Now, in order to get to the point where that can work, here's the problem. When I tore that front top of the deck apart in the front, if you recall, I cut it down the sides and cut the two existing fiberglass sections out in big sections and lifted them off. And then when I put everything back together, I put them back down and kind of epoxied them in place, but I did not fiberglass over the joints, and they all cracked over the winter. So that didn't work. I've learned my lesson. I should have ground that down to bare fiberglass and then fiberglassed a big sheet over the top, put a couple layers down and done it right, and that's probably what I'm going to do to finish that. Then the only other thing that really needs is the mast step needs to be reinstalled. And if I am really going to go take it up there and put it in Seattle, I got to do something about the bottom paint, because I figured I'd be putting it back in someplace like Bear Lake or Flaming Gorge or Strawberry Reservoir, where I'd be pulling it out in the winter, so I'd only get a few months worth of bottom stuff. But if I do wind up putting it in the water and leaving it up there, you got to have something that can handle the growth and being cleaned and so forth. So the bottom paint would probably need some work. And if I am going to take it up there around serious sailors, that keel is going to have to be fixed up. So where I'm going with that is I got work to do on that sailboat, and it's starting to feel a little like maybe that should be bumped up a little bit on the priority list. Now, I understand. Trust me, I do understand. I've read the comments. Most of you who've subscribed to this channel are here for this, the Jeep. And I get it. The Jeeps were never really the reason that I started doing all this. If you have paid any attention to the name of the channel and to my little logo that I had my guy build for me, landlocked no more. This has been about me going boating from day one. But I feel like I owe you to finish the Jeep. So all I'm saying is I'm struggling a little bit right now to figure out what to do first. And I'm standing inside of a house. I'm in the garage of a house, which unfortunately needs a little bit of maintenance itself. I hired some guys last year to redo the front yard, pull out all the old bushes and stuff and put rocks down and do it all properly. They didn't do a great job in finishing the project. They didn't put my gates in, and they didn't finish the sprinklers, and so I've got some work to do to fix that stuff up so that I can kind of at least keep the grass in the backyard going. They cut the sprinkler line over here and then just capped it off instead of fixing it so that the sprinklers that were existing in the backyard would still work. Not very happy with my guys that did that work. Still trying to track them down and get my gates installed, but that's another story altogether. But the only reason I'm telling you this is because I got yard work to do, and I hate yard work. I'm just going to tell you right now, that is not my thing. But I'm trying to, look at it like, well, let's keep the value of the house reasonably high so that if I do wind up getting out of the business and getting ready to move up there to Seattle for good, I could sell this house or potentially maybe rent it out to somebody and it'd be in good shape. So I've talked a lot. I've got some buffing to do to get this BMW finished up. I'm going to do that. Then I'll come back and we'll talk about what I'm going to do next. If you really love your vehicles, hand wax them, man. There's nothing finer than that process of getting down there and staring at every inch of your car. I love this thing. So here's the deal. I'm using Meguiar's liquid wax. Let me know in the comments if you think that's a bad brand or a great brand, or you have something there. I mean, it's all wax. It all wears out eventually. However, it's pretty easy. It's not a thick, pasty stuff. It's more of a thin kind of liquid, and it goes on pretty easy. It buff it off with just they give you this terry cloth towel, and then I bought some other ones that are kind of these really soft terry cloth or microfiber terry cloth or whatever. They're really soft as a baby's butt. And so I'm taking off the dried wax with the terry cloth one they gave me, and then I'm taking the pass over it with this white one, and this thing is so smooth. You can feel, how many times I told you I was working on this Jeep, I was doing the sanding and the finishing by feel. It's the same thing when you're waxing your car, man. You can feel when you have all the wax off with this rag. So then you stop and you give it another little polish. Then you take that really smooth one and you just go over it a few times with that, and you just feel this thing it starts to glide across that wax. Whew, this thing's gonna be 10 miles an hour faster now. So I won't make you watch me do the whole thing. I've got the driver's side to do, and I closed the garage door to cool off the back because it's in the shade, it's in the sun. And I've got to do the hood, the back bumper and all that back there, back quarter panels. I'll do those, and as promised, we'll have a talk. I will be honest with you, I am a little nervous about my paint job here. So let's have a look. This is the primer that I sprayed on there, and I've taken some 800 grit and gone over it. I just filled in all the low places, but you can see, probably you can see how orange peely that looks. That's not what I was shooting for. So I think what I'm learning is that issue I had with the primer was an issue, and right now I'm just going over it with a piece of 800 grit sandpaper, and I knew that I was past the point where I was going to get by with that little bit of sanding, because the primer, you're supposed to paint it within 48 hours or something like that of having it applied, so you get that chemical bond between the two. So I'm well past that. So I knew I was gonna have to do a little sanding, but now I'm starting to not panic, but yeah, I'm not too satisfied with I didn't want a texture there, and I can feel it with my fingertips. We've talked about how sensitive your fingertips are when you're running over across something, so I can feel the orange peel texture of my primer application. So not gonna be spraying paint today. right, well, this is like a psychological battle here. So I've got a fair amount of sanding ahead of me again. And gosh darn it, I thought I was done with that. What I'm finding is the same thing is holding true that's always held true, is just, you know, you've got to look down these panels with the light in the right direction. And when the garage doors open and the sun's going down, all my sins are laid bare right there on the side of this Jeep. So, man, it's hard to keep your enthusiasm when you know, are struggling this much to get this to the point where you can make it look good. And you know, my confidence now is a little shaken, to be honest with you, because this was my first pass spraying. There's probably, I'm reminded of that scene in the old movie Jeremiah Johnson with Robert Redford, where he goes to sleep at night with the old dude out in the country and they've buried their hot coals to sleep on top of, and he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's all hot and everything and on fire or whatever, and the old dude laying next to him is like, "Yep, you didn't put enough dirt on those coals. I saw that right away." You know, he says it better than that. But anyway, I'm sure there's probably someone out on the internet. Maybe you didn't see me struggling with this primer, but you probably were shouting at your screen if you did, going, "Don't do it, don't. You screwed up that primer when you didn't mix it properly. Don't use it." So I didn't hear you. So anyway, I'm wrapping her up for tonight, and I just got a little grunt work ahead of me before I feel like I'm confident, and we'll see how it goes. The one thing about it, where it is kind of orange peeled like this, I feel like it's a fairly heavy coat of primer, and it's hard. I'll give it that. Boy, it's tough sanding. You know, I've been switching back and forth between a little piece of 600 grit or maybe 320 grit up there doing the little detail work. I found some Bondo where I didn't need any around that, where that second layer is on that front fender. Been cleaning that up. Around the Jeep letters again, of course, around the Jeep letters. How many hours have I spent around those stupid letters? But I don't want to turn to a mechanized sander at this point, because I think that would take too much off. I'm just trying to smooth the orange peel stuff down, leave enough primer there to bond the paint to, and then paint this SOB and be done with it. Man, I'm wearing out. Got to be honest. I'm wearing out. So anyway, that's where I'm leaving it for tonight. And I might see you again before I may give you a wrap up when I'm done, if you care. I mean, I don't know how well the camera's picking this up. I'm going to go upload this footage and see if I can see it. Because if I can't see it, then there's no sense showing it to you. But if you can see it on the camera, what I'm struggling with, then at least you'll understand why I'm obsessing here. So that's it for tonight. Okay, so for Sunday's little short drive, we took a drive up to Upper Stillwater Reservoir, which is, for those of you who aren't from Utah, a reservoir that is kind of right up on the edge of the Uintas, High Uintas Primitive area. It's one of the first places where the runoff gets captured, and this spillway is just this kind of gap in the middle of the dam. So it doesn't go over the top every year, so it's kind of a deal when it does. So Gray and I went up and checked it out a little bit, took the dog with us, and got up in the mountains for a minute and got to see once a year and once not every year event. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't go over the top every year, but when it does, it's quite a spectacle. So I did finally break down and slapped a piece of 400 grit sandpaper, or the highest stick-on stuff I have, on my orbital sander, and got busy. Now let me just show you up close here. I think I've salvaged this. So a little around the edges still could use a little work here, but it's smoothing out nicely. So I think we're gonna salvage this primer job. Not taking too much off. A couple of little places the filler's starting to show back through. At this point though, I think I'll be all right with it. And I was just thinking as I was going along with a little piece of hand sanding paper, sandpapering around the curves of the fender and all that kind of stuff, that I think when I get done with this thing, assuming I can get it painted without this same kind of an issue, I think I've earned the right to enter this SOB in a car show, haven't I? So I've done the passenger side, pretty much all of it. A little bit of detail work left, and then what I'm gonna do right now though is I'm gonna do the hood and see if it's the same way. Once you touch it with the sandpaper, you really see that rough surface. So hopefully this is gonna be the ticket to get this thing smooth and ready for my paint. So I did give in and drug out the power tools, or at least the air tools. So again, I'm not going to bore you with making you watch me, but just know that I am once again going that extra mile to fix up something that I didn't do quite properly so that it gets the proper look. So yeah, like I said, maybe one of these days you're going to see this thing in a car show, because I think I've earned it. I said I wasn't going to make you watch me sand anymore. However, I was just thinking, when I get to that car show and I win the thing because I've done such a meticulous job on this Jeep, and the rich dude with the perfectly preserved Jaguar E-Type is complaining to the judges that he doesn't really think I did the work myself, we'll just pull up this YouTube channel and I'll say, which part do you think I didn't do? I got the footage to prove it. So that, my friends, is why I made you watch me sand the hood. It is getting along in the evening. As you can tell, the sun's getting quite a ways into the garage here. It's heating up a little in here. I'm also very hungry. I'm gonna go make me some dinner, and probably that'll be it for this weekend. I got some vacuuming to do, some cleanup and so forth, so I can get the car back in here. And I did get a fresh batch of dead bugs on the front of the Tacoma on our little trip up to Upper Stillwater. So when it cools down a little bit, I will go to the car wash and remove those bugs from the front of the truck. But yeah, I have accepted my fate. I need to sand this thing down, smooth it out, but it is smoothing out, and the primer layer is for the most part staying there. So I think I'm gonna be all right. And I'm gonna practice with that paint gun before I tear into it again. So there you go. All is well.